Hello again. This is a continuation of my Game of Thrones review. When you start out as a new character, you can start out at higher levels, and this is done more often in this game than your standard traditional D&D game. When you start out at higher levels, it can depend on what style of campaign you're playing. Um, if you have a high social status, like if you're a prince of a royal house that's a major house, you actually have a higher estimated class level, or ECL. And ECL is only used at character creation. If you gain titles or anything of power in the campaign itself, you don't use ECL for that. It's only at the character creation. And all the characters should basically be even in ECL, estimated class level, unless it is agreed to before a campaign starts that, this is going to be you're going to be the head of the household and we're going to be, one step below you. Kind of like you're going to be the leader, we're going to be the followers. And that can work, but I think in most games people want to be even. Step 2, character outline. This is where you want to flesh out your character in different ways, and it just gives you some suggestions. Are you a noble? Are you a commoner or small folk, as the slang is called? Were you illegitimate? Are you bastard? What are your strengths? What defines your character, defines them. And basically character names to fit the setting. The last name of illegitimate children are by location, and commoners generally do not have last names. Nicknames can be more important than their real name. And if you really want to just jump right into this game and you don't want to work through all this character generation nonsense, you can just use one of the characters in the back of the book, one of the NPCs, and some of them are the main characters from the book. So if you want to take your version of a Game of Thrones in a different direction than the books went, that's perfectly within your right to do that. And the next section will be Chapter 3, which is about ability scores. Now, the game uses the standard 6 D&D stats. Like I said, point buy or 46 drop the lowest, and a range. Some of the things where it deviates, though. Strength does not add to hit because armor is damage reduction. Same thing with dexterity. That doesn't add to hit either. There are some feats that can improve combat, but they're generally not as beefy, I guess, as some of the standard D&D ones. Intelligence doesn't grant bonus languages. It uses the speak language skill instead. And there's this new thing called shock value. And it's based on your con. It's half your con round down. And I'll go into that later. Charisma gives bonus influence points. There's no turning ability. And it goes through a section saying that the children grow up pretty fast in this setting. There are some benefits and negatives from your age, especially if you're a child or you're very old, and they affect your stats in different ways. And if you start out very young, you actually have to talk to your GM about what you're actually going to do. I like that at the end of every of these chapters, there's a summary that kind of goes over some of the main details, and it's just kind of a nice little refresher course at the end of the chapters. Chapter 4 goes into backgrounds, and you want to select a single background. And it's basically where your character was born and how they were raised. And this details the cultural differences and benefits. And you should probably think about what house you're going to choose when you're picking your background. It also lists the houses that are in that region. And they basically these backgrounds give bonuses to saves, favored skills, etc. And favored skills are treated always as class skills. So, especially for multi-class, characters. So if you have a skill that is a man-at-arms skill, and you go up a noble class the next level, you can still put skill ranks into the class skills from man-at-arms. So it basically makes multi-class characters more viable. and some of the backgrounds that you pick have restrictions. There are some regional feats that you can take, and there's also the unknown background, which is kind of interesting. And it's kind of an option if you really don't want to come up with a background, like not really knowing where you're from, and the GM pretty much can tell you later. That seems to put a little bit more, stress on the GM though. And there are 13 pages of backgrounds. In Westeros, there's Dorne, the Iron Kingdoms, King's Landing, the North, the Reach, the Riverlands, the Stormlords, the Vale of Arryn, the Westerlands, and the Wild. And in the East, there's the Dothraki Sea and the Free Cities. And there's a full page on each of these with nice little illustrations. There's lots of cool fluff and ideas to use in your characters. If I was going to run a game of this, I would photocopy the characters' backgrounds and give them to each character so that they have that right in front of them. Chapter 5 is House Affiliation. And this is the great houses, the smaller houses, or no house. And you want to ask your GM what kind of level of campaign he's going to be running. There are house benefits and, of course, enemies of your house. And background and house normally work together, but if you want to make an interesting character that is perhaps being raised by somewhere else, you can do that. There is a minor house template to make your own house, because there's lots of minor houses in the game, in the setting. You basically choose no house if you want to have a Dothraki or a Free Cities character, but ask your GM if that's allowed. Each full-page house description has a motto, their banner, history, personality, holdings, position, destiny, prominent members, house traits, and feats. Position, what that basically is it, like in a timeline, it's basically when Eddard becomes the Hand of the King, and destiny is what happens at the end of the first book. So basically that's like the starting timeline and the end timeline, and then it's up to the GM after that. Like I said before, the house is a prerequisite for certain feats that are listed. Your basic place or rank in the house gives your rank of social status. And then again, we'll go into that later. There's different defects and feats you can take to bump up or drop your social status. And also, there's a wealth feat that actually has ranks. There are suggestions for lowering or raising social status in the game. And again, I would photocopy the house affiliation page for your player. So if your house Stark, you might have a background that says, the North, and then your house affiliation would be Stark. And I would think they should have one page for the background and one page for their house affiliation, just so it's laid out nice and just right there. You staple on the back of the character sheet. Next thing, is social status, and that is basically from a -1 to 6. -1 is an outcast. You actually have to take a defect for that. Next level up is apprentice, novice, sellswords, squire, or hedge knight. They're level 0. Then the next level above that is sworn sword, household servant, lesser merchant, acolyte. That's rank 1. House retainer, landed knight, a merchant, or maester. That's level 2 in social status. A member of a minor house, a greater landed knight, or a greater merchant is rank 3 in social status. If you're a member of a great house, an archmaester, or a member of the Kingsguard, that's rank 4. If you're a member of a royal family, that's rank 5. And if you're the king, that's rank 6. But obviously there's only one king. I guess maybe not obviously, because at the end of the books there's more than one king. But you get what I'm saying. And the ECL modifier is generally 1 less than the social status rank. So if your social status is rank 2, your ECL is +1. And that's on page 41 if you want to check that out. Social status also grants a +4 skill bonus, basically per higher rank of social class when dealing with political enemies. So if you're rank 2 and they're rank 1, you get a +4 bonus. If you're rank 3 and they're rank 1, you get a +8 bonus. So social status can have it has a lot of power to it, obviously. But that works vice versa as well. If you're dealing with a political enemy that is 2 ranks higher than you, that's going to go very badly for you. Yeah, so social status means something. It's basically power. GMs should try to keep in mind that power isn't always so cut and dry as the social status rank, because you can be a very, very powerful, like rank 0, and actually be more powerful than a rank 1, depending on the circumstances. There are always exceptions to the above rule I just went over. There's an optional rule to make maesters more powerful, depending on what house they work for. And there's basically suggestions for Dothraki and social status as well. Influence and wealth. Each rank and social status grants 5 influence points. Now, you basically spend these influence points to show where your power base is, who you are in control of, who are your allies, who has sworn oaths to you, etc. And yeah, you basically get a rank in wealth as well for each social status rank. Wealth can go up or down, and yeah, I'm going to read basically this little section on page 92 about influence points. And here's some suggestions to use influence points and what you can do with them. It's the ability to ask for and receive shelter or haven in your territory, access to news, rumors, and gossip, ability to call for service from those of lower rank, ability to call for swords for your cause, commanding those of lower social status, requesting favors of your peers, those of the same social status rank, being responsible for those beneath you, and fulfilling your obligation of duty to those above you. Because it all depends on, the king's at the top, and everybody's got to listen to the king. An angry king is a mean tyrant. So that's basically how influence and influence points kind of work. Again, it goes further in the book. It'll go into more detail about it. Also, the game does not track minor costs. We're not counting coppers here. If you have rank 2 or above, you pretty much get anything that makes sense. Again, it comes down to the GM and players kind of agreeing with, at rank 2, you're a landed knight, a merchant, you're going to have some money. So we're not sweating small stuff. You can gain titles in the game, and that can affect things as well. And then we're on to Chapter 6, the classes. Like I said before, there are 8 new core classes. There's the Artisan, which is a craftsman, the Performers, Diplomats, Heralds, Stewards. There's Godsworn, which are the priests and followers of the 7. Hunter, pretty much as the name implies. There's a Knave, like rogues. There's a Maester, which is the Keepers of Knowledge, the Knights of the Mind. Men-at-Arms, which are the loyal bannermen, the sellswords, the soldiers and warriors. Nobles, children of high birth. If you play in any sort of house at all, you have to have at least 1 rank, or 1 class of noble. Or 1 level of noble, I'm sorry. There's Raider, which are basically the barbarians and wildfolk. And multi-class characters are encouraged. They don't suffer XP penalties. 2 to 3, 4 classes is common. And I'm going to stop here and start another video.